Hey, folks, it's a Monday, which means it's time yet again for the Frontrunner Football Podcast. And it's been one of those weekends where there's not been much as far as the football that most people like, because let's be honest, I think most people dread international windows, especially when they don't think their team are going to be all that impactful. I'm sure a lot of people were watching the Euro Nations and what they were up to. But for us, we got a sneak peek at if not the players he has in mind, some of the thinking he has in mind when selecting those players. I'm, of course, referring to Coach Molefe-Ntseki, who at the weekend got a bit of I don't know, it's a drab set of results. It's no victories, so that's already alarm bells and enough for most people who are watching to call for his head. But I think there's maybe a reason to calm all that down and to have to unpack that with me. I have none other than Rob Delport and Velile Mnyandu joining me on the podcast. Welcome, gents. Did you enjoy seeing Bafana Bafana take to their field in their new kits and new faces and so much new, but maybe a lot of old habits as well? How would you ascertain the weekend that was? Let's start with you, Rob.
It was a difficult weekend. I'll be honest. I'm always like really pumped up for Bafana games. I'm always expecting a lot, and I'm always disappointed because I really did think we would be a lot better than we were. I thought some of the players that he brought in had potential to deliver a lot more than they did, and it was actually quite a disappointing 2 games to watch, because in both games there were moments that gave you a bit of hope, and obviously we could see which players are of an international level, but I was very disappointed to see some guys who I think have the potential not stepping up. You know, the fact is, when you put on your national jersey, you're supposed to raise your game, you know, take your game to the next level. And some of the guys definitely didn't do that. Look, there are always excuses. International friendlies are tough. It's kind of why I think Europe have pretty much done away with them by adding the Nations League. Perhaps that's something Africa needs to do as well. Maybe if every game was competitive, we'd see that competitive edge. But I thought that's what was lacking. Even from the guys who performed well, I still think they looked a little too relaxed out there.
No, for sure. You get a sense that they know that it's all just friendlies and, you know, some of us are going to stay, some of us are going to go. So we're not really going to apply ourselves 110%, which is sad because, you know, ironically, really, when you see these players and you're thinking they're donning this new jersey as part of a new chapter in South African football, that they don't take that into consideration, that, you know what, guys, every time we play as Bafana, no matter if it's a friendly against our SADC neighbors or it's against Brazil, we got to bring our game, our A++ game.
Look, having been there and being one of the very few who watched the team at training session for the past few days, especially on the match day -1 before the first game. The first game, I thought I kind of understood the struggle there. If you look at the composition of that team, it was a bunch of players who are not regulars at senior international level with Bafana Bafana, including 3 debutants. So I had expected better, but I kind of understand how things went there. And I also felt that maybe it was not entirely a good decision to just fill them all on their own, you know, maybe a bit of mixing experience and also with some who were new to make things easier for them. So yeah, the first result was slightly disappointing for me as well. We should have done better, especially if you notice even in both games, we also failed to protect the lead, you know. At this level, you can't score and you fail to protect the lead. But I don't really want to dwell much on the first game. I was more disappointed with the second game for me.
Sure.
And more disappointed on the second game because now it was the senior players who started that game, and to be honest, it was a well-deserved result for Zambia. They dominated us in that game. We were fortunate to see them missing. If you saw the miss of Fashion Sakala, only with an open net, maybe the pressure also helped from Madisha as well. You saw Lubambo Musonda's strike, which hit the upright, you know. So Zambia, in fact, should have led maybe 2 or even 3-0 before we scored there. And I also felt maybe some of the changes also didn't help us yesterday. But I have to say that we lost to a better team yesterday. But besides also losing to a better team, but we're also our own worst enemies yesterday. One of the things I saw at training this week, the players were really struggling when it comes to match fitness levels. They were really
the Namibian coach even pointed it out. He said his players were fitter than the players coming out of the Absa Premiership season and the ones in the front.
No, I'm told, in fact, some of the players, even in the first game, they were asking to be substituted, you know. And even at training, some of them were really struggling. But for me, I don't want to say that as an excuse, you know. Playing at home, you're supposed to do better, especially against your neighbors, you know. We're supposed to do better. So I was more disappointed with yesterday's game than the first one. And also, one of the main things that the coach had initially said that he wants to see some few combinations and also from some of the players who necessarily been part of the senior setup, you know. So I think from that angle, now it also gives him a clear picture, because remember, this was also the last international friendly matches until 2022. Next year there will be no chance for friendlies. It's AFCON qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers. Then we come back we start the AFCON 2023 qualifiers even before we get to AFCON 2022. You understand?
Right.
So it's a very jam-packed program next year. So if there was a chance for him to look at some combinations, this was the only chance. And so now he will have, for the next camp against Sao Tome and Principe, you remember even Ghana only won 1-0 through a penalty in Sao Tome. Understand? So now he will have to make sure that he gets 6 points, because you don't want to leave it too late, because the last 2 matches are against Ghana and Sudan.
For sure. Just hello to those who are joining us on this stream on YouTube. Thank you very much. We're chatting about, of course, the action at the weekend. Bafana Bafana not being able to register a win, 1 draw and 1 loss against Namibia and Zambia, respectively. But I mean, looking at that situation, and maybe that's what he can kind of get away with, Rob, is the fact that this was just an opportunity for him to try things. He was never trying to put out the best team. And, you know, I guess he's saying, because I have such a short and a lock-jammed timetable, I need to find out what I have. And I can't just do that off a video. I need to see these players in action. And whilst some may see it as an opportunity missed in fielding strong teams, you know, to his end of trying to see what's available to him, can you maybe sympathize and maybe also just, you know, because I don't understand these calls for him to be sacked. I mean, it's just like, guys, we're not even into the real work. I'll be the first to say he should be if he doesn't succeed at the real work, but this is really still the planning stages, no?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the thing is that even with scientists, you know, a lot of experiments that you do, sometimes the result, the failure result is a result, you know. I think there were certain combinations that he tried, and it didn't look like they worked well. And perhaps now he knows that. Yeah. It's all about whether he learns from this experience. I thought there were certain players who did put their hands up. I thought, despite us conceding 2 goals yesterday, I thought Macheka Madisha was superb, because we could have conceded 5 goals if not for him. He made a few, he really put his body on the line. And to be honest, that's what I want to see from every South African player, putting their body on the line. And Macheka's a defender, so you see it in that defending context. But I want to see my forwards putting their body on the line. I want to see my midfielders putting their body on the line. And that, I think, some players did that. And unfortunately, in a team sport, an individual error can often lead to a team losing. And both goals came from a South African player having possession and losing possession, and Zambia striking.
Okay, so there we
Yeah,
go.
and also, if you look at it, those goals also came when there were changes in the midfield. So there was a bit of disorganization, especially after that Jali and Tebo Homokwena combination fell away, you know. So it was not the same, you know. And even the training, I had been noticing sometimes how Mvala, to be exact, would also misplace position, ball position, you know. And at that level, with the way Zambia was also attacking, because when they attack, when they break on that transition, they have got about 3 to 4, if not 5 players, you know, and they attack the box. If you saw Zulu, if you saw Musonda, if you saw Lungu yesterday, the way they're doing things. So they came here with a plan. And you know what? We lost to a Zambian team which arrived here, landed at OR Tambo just after 9 p.m. and still drove to Rustenburg. So in terms of rest, there was no rest at all. They had played on Friday, lost to Kenya on Friday, and they were unfortunate because they had a goal disallowed, and it was a clear goal that was disallowed. So they lost there, and they came to redeem themselves. And also, it was not even a fully fledged Zambian team that we lost to yesterday. They didn't have Betson Daka, they didn't have Enoch Mwepu, they also didn't have Kambone, they didn't have Shonga, they didn't have Mulenga. You know, yes, I know that also on our side we're missing some of our few players, both here locally and also overseas as well. So, but there was a lot of hunger. And also you could see how Mitchell also won the game from the bench. If you look at the subs that he made yesterday, Kelvin Kampamba, the boy from Ghana FC, brilliant goal that he scored there, you know. So look, for Mitchell, even today they were playing against Orlando Pirates. They're playing Sundowns tomorrow. So you could see what they're trying to do, because Zambia also finds themselves in a tricky situation. They didn't start well with the AFCON qualifiers, and they've got qualifiers next month against Botswana. So it's important that they also get maximum points from those 2 games. So look, on our side, I think it's clear now. The coach, he will have to continue with the core of his team, you know, so that he can get 6 points next month. And for me, I think now, listening to the SAFA president yesterday, it also talks to the situation of the Bongani Zungu, you know.
Right.
It talks to Bongani Zungu, but this is a situation that I will not only leave it at the door of Molefe Ntseki, you know, I will also leave it at the door of the SAFA president as well, you know, because for me, this is something that SAFA should have also dealt with, especially when it started to be getting out of hand. Whatever was happening between the coach and Bongani Zungu, you know.
Right.
But I have to say that I was very disappointed. There's a video that I saw where Bongani appears to be calling some of his Bafana teammates as I'm a player afile, dead players, you know. And I understand that part of his comments on social media are also not going down well with some of the players in camp. So when it's that situation, it's no longer just about the coach now, you know. SAFA should have dealt with this thing long time ago, and they had promised to deal with it, and they have not dealt with it, and now it's getting out of hand, you know. He's a top player. He's just signed for a top club, coached by former great player. I'm not sure he's a coach yet, you know. We have to be honest.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
He must overthrow Celtic first, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
You
know? Yeah. So I mean, fortunately, I was around camp last week. I went to Rustenburg twice, you know, and I could pick the vibe that inside, some of the players are not really happy with his comments. Not only towards the coach, but also some of the comments he's made about some players. And I mean, this is something that was on a public platform that he said that some of the players who have been called to replace him are dead players. I mean.
Wow. Okay. He seems to be part of the problem there, Bravi. But someone wants to know from YouTube, Neo Kabai, since you had the privilege to be with the team at training, are you convinced that Mr. Nseki is the right man for the job? Maybe.
I just think for me, because these comments that people have been having didn't start just now after these two matches, even before the two matches. And I felt it was a bit unfair for someone who's just started, you know.
Sure.
And also there were a lot of challenges with this particular camp. A lot of challenges with this particular camp, especially some of the things going behind the scenes there. You know, because it was not one of the easiest camps. This one, it's a bit shambolic, I have to say. You know,
in what sense?
Just the way things were happening, you know, just the way things were happening. But I'll wait for you because I know where you are going. You want to talk about the kit as well, you know. So on the balance of how things have started, I still feel to lambast him and to call him names and say he's not the right candidate, he's not the right coach. Remember, he didn't appoint himself.
For sure.
Yeah, he didn't appoint himself. And if there are people that we must blame, it's the suits that suffer. You know.
Right.
And I mean, Safa. If you look at Safa, for the past, I think their last 3 appointments, if not 4 appointments, they've gone for candidates that they were not going for because they always chose the cheaper route, you know?
Right.
Yes. So the coach didn't appoint himself. And now one of the other things is that we are in the middle of the qualifying campaign, and we've recorded 3 out of a possible 6 points. And I feel that let's give him a chance, you know. And also he comes in at a critical time where he has to refresh the team because the team is gonna age, you know. And there are critical positions. If you look at, especially at centre back, all the things we're trying to do in this camp was to get it is someone who's going to partner Tyson,
Sure.
you know.
Sure.
And I thought Madisha did well. I would have loved to see him pairing Tibang Pete also with Tyson as well, you know. So yeah, I just feel that on the side of refreshing the team, he's a good candidate on that side. But we need results.
We do need results. You're right.
Yeah,
and I guess it's as simple as if he doesn't qualify, he's got to go, right? Would you both?
No. It's that simple.
That's simple.
It's that simple. If he doesn't qualify for the AFCON, it's simple, you know.
Does it matter how he qualifies? I mean, if it's through some mathematical equation,
and look,
it's still okay? Or?
We are in the middle of a qualifying campaign right now. Our fate is in our own hands. We must finish in the top 2 in our group. We play against Sao Tome and Principe. 6 points there takes us to 9 points. And depending on what happens to Sudan and Ghana in their double header, we get 6 points there, 1 foot inside, you know. And we still have Ghana coming here in March, and also we go to Sudan. So let's wait and see. Because right now, you know, I just feel that you know our people they like names. the message or what I've been seeing that people don't know Coach Ntseki, they don't know his credentials. But you must also know that the senior players in the camp this past weekend, Jali, Kermit, Darren Kidd, Tyson, those are players who worked with Ntseki from 2009.
Right.
You know, they were at the Under 20 World Cup together. You know, and the players who came into the picture for 2015 and also even 2016 Olympics, he's been part of those. He's been part of those camps, you know.
Right.
And he was also a part of the assistants to Owen Dagama at the Olympics. He's worked with Sinong, and also he went with players like Riv Frosler to the World Cup under 17. I think people also look at no, he's not coaching the PSL, and you know sometimes this issue of coaching in the PSL, you're not coaching the PSL just because you are the best deserving candidate. It's because also you are fortunate to have how can I put this? You are fortunate to have a club owner who will give you the chance, you know. And some of these coaches who've been long been there, and because you must also check when they won which tournament was this? When Celtic won the 2012 Telkom knockout, who was assisting Clinton Larson there, you know, and who brought Tapelo Morena there, you know. So I think the notion that Coach Ntseki is coming from nowhere and has got no credentials in the game, people who are in the right position to rectify those things and come up with the information and context like I'm doing it now, they must come out with that, you know. And whatever we can say about him and if he doesn't deserve to be there, but also let's spare a thought that he didn't appoint himself.
Sure.
He didn't appoint himself.
Yeah, and I mean, I basically agree that I think we have to give him a chance within the qualifiers. What I think has happened by the results from these friendlies is he's added pressure on himself. The truth is that these friendlies were a perfect opportunity to lift that pressure and give himself a bit of an identity.
Sure.
And unfortunately, that didn't happen. But the thing is that I think we've had more coaches than years Bafana's existed, which is a problem, because this is what unfortunately happens every time a coach is in charge and results don't go our way. People start calling for his head, the pressure builds, and that happens. For me, it is based on results. Coach Ntseki has an easier route to the AFCON than some of the previous coaches. With the 2014 tournament, it means that qualifying is a lot easier. And I think that basically is the mandate. You don't qualify for AFCON, you're gone. And listen, I mean, a lot of times people do want names as coaches, but the truth is that around the world, international coaches and club coaches are different kettle of fish. You know, a lot of great club coaches struggle at international level, and a lot of great international coaches have got almost no background at club or have a small record. So that happens. I think it's just sad that, you know, again, home friendlies, it could have been a boost of confidence. And I think really just as a fan of the South African national team, that's what I wanted from this. I wanted a boost of confidence. Instead, I'm like last week, I was really excited, and this week I'm a little down.
Yeah,
I'm a little depressed.
I agree with you.
No, for me, I
was like, let's see.
Yeah, no, I don't understand. I don't. You know, I have to say it. I'm also disappointed. You know, because I felt these were two matches. As much as yes, you are trying combinations and all those things, but also you have to build the confidence for the next camp. You know. And you do that through winning, you know. So I just thought that, you know, that's an area where we should have done better, you know.
But Stavesh, even on your point that they organized more friendlies with clubs here, during their time. Like Zambia took that initiative to do something like that. Whereas with us, it was like, oh, 2 is fine. Let's not try and get as many as we can because there's not going to be any friendlies as we get into qualifying. You can see that there's a different approach. One coach is saying, I'm going to try and get in as many games as possible. The other's like, well, 2 should do it, right?
But also, you need to understand that Mitchell was appointed, or his appointment was confirmed during lockdown. And since he started before the qualifiers next month, he had not played a single game with Zambia.
Right.
So things between Zambia and Bafana Bafana, there was a huge difference in that side. But also, most importantly, Mitchell is not just preparing only for the AFCON qualifiers, but also for CHAN.
Right.
Because in January, they are going to Cameroon where they'll be playing CHAN. So he had a squad of 40 players, with some of them being locally based players who will be playing in the CHAN tournament. So in terms of their objectives, that's why they are even playing, because the overseas based players left today. They are not part of the squad which is playing these friendly matches against Pirates and also against Sundowns.
Right.
So it's 2 different programs.
I hear you, but do you think Mulivinseki's gotten enough out of these 2 games to make strong decisions?
No, look, for what he wanted to achieve in terms of looking at players, especially those who are not part of his core, surely he's seen what he wanted to see, and that's why he played them. And I felt that maybe that's where we should have mixed them, because you don't just throw. If you look at Vala, you look at Nodada being there on their own for the better part of the first game, as people who are not always in the setup of Bafana. So I felt that was just one area, maybe they could have done better there. Maybe have a bit of experience, mix them, even at center back, mix them. Yes, Libusa is there with Pete, but maybe you bring in Pete, play with Tyson, and then you bring in Tyson, play with Libusa, or then Matisha, So at least players were used at that level. So with Bafana also, remember the local program is starting this week, and he needs these relations with coaches locally. To return the players, like most players were back at their teams this morning, or going back tomorrow to prepare for the MTN 8 this week, and also the start of the new season in the league next week. So you need to manage. You need to manage that, and he had spoken about doing this. So that when you start the other camp, you can always have the support of the coaches. I'm not sure if Zambia has got the similar challenges that we have, and like I'm saying to you, I could see most players. Remember, some players had not even returned to training with their teams. So they had been off for a month, and their first training session was there at Bafana.
Right.
And I also just to say that I think the one area that I think he will be disappointed, not just because of the games, but just the whole camp, was up front, because obviously Kermit was there. Of his original selections. Kurt Abrahams obviously couldn't make it. Manyama, I believe, was injured, so missed out on that experiment that he wanted to take Manyama back to his days at Alex. He brings in Lyle Foster as a replacement, and he gives him a few minutes in the one game and literally 15 seconds in the second game before he goes down. So there's certain things that I think he would like to have looked at that he couldn't look at, and that again is a little disappointing, because that's what I'm worried about for the qualifiers. Is what are his solutions to those problems?
Right, and if he's been able to look at them, sort them out with 2 games. We've got a packed program, brother. We need to ask you about the situation with the Cork Sportif. Obviously we saw pictures coming out from the weekend of not Le Cork raincoats with black gaffer tape all over them. probably from the previous sponsor. How has this new sponsor not been, hitting the ground running, been prepared, doing a launch with, of the one that's deserving of a national team? I mean, I'm sure, everyone was scratching their head at this camp, thinking, how does this guy get in here as a sponsor and not do things the way it should be done? I mean, the fact that there were no raincoats, for instance, it just seems like it's a bit of a scattergun approach from our new sponsor. Or do you think in time they're going to get everything sorted out and be the technical sponsor we're looking for?
Yeah, but you see, this is also part of the importance of going to camp as journalists, to especially when you want to see what's happening in camp, So for me, I was not entirely surprised. In fact, I was surprised that people are surprised by what was happening, because no. You must look, and sometimes we post pictures, and when we post pictures, we don't post pictures because we just want people to see. We want people to analyze, because if you would have noticed closer, you would have noticed that the goalkeepers at training didn't have a training kit. They were wearing the same jerseys as infield players, and you could see there was just, some of the stories there were not enough shots. Not enough shots. So it was not the issue of raincoat, and I knew that thing was coming.
Right.
Go back to the first game. The players were sitting on the bench. Did you notice that they were wearing the kit that they were using for training?
Wow.
On the bench. You understand?
Yeah.
So, and this is something that I don't understand, because between SAFA and Lecoq Sportif, the agreement or the signs were there before lockdown, just before lockdown. I remember when Sunday Times did the story of the new sponsor, it was before the lockdown, So are you saying in 5 to 6 months, and they know that the next international week will be in October? There was no provision made, because I know it was disappointing. So for me, the issue of the raincoats, I saw it coming. That one. I don't think they will be brave enough to come to, which is very unfortunate for me. Very unfortunate, because Bafana Bafana is the flagship,
of course,
of SAFA. It's so, and also we are in a country where even our league commercial is one of the best leagues on the continent, if not the best, So all eyes are on us, especially when we play against Namibia and Zambia, our neighbors. Sure. Their benchmarking is on South Africa, So when it's us now who can handle such an easy thing like this, an easy thing like this, So it was really disappointing to see the SAFA administration not handling this thing in a proper way.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, and this is why we go into camp, because look, I'm not going there just for kids, but you have to find the vibe, and you have to see, and also you're around there in camp and you see other members of the camp or from SAFA. This one is wearing Nike, this one is wearing the new kit, this one is wearing Adidas, and you're like, sure, it's really shocking. But where also this thing is coming from. One of the things I've noticed that SAFA currently is seriously short-staffed. Because they've released a number of people through the retrenchments packages that they took, and some departments are seriously ailing at this stage, operating. I think the commercial department, which is where most of the things we're dealing with now, are falling under.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they've got anyone left, right? So and you could see how some of these things were also impacting the camp, because people were just complaining, complaining, and you know, it will be another story for another day. If you want to know the situation, how did Mubara end up having to replace Frosler?
Mm.
Because sometimes the technical team has to come across as managing the situation, but it was not really for technical reasons, as we were made to believe,
Really?
And it's also something that has got to do with a bit of administration on the other side,
Yes.
See, I made a joke.
Now
I made a joke last week that Safa didn't have enough personnel to send Pizzo a good luck message. And now it's coming out. I mean, the thing is, and all of this, really, we shouldn't see this as supporters or media in the flagship of SAFA.
No, because you see, these things are basics. You knew late last year already that Nike is not coming back, right? And you're supposed to be having a new sponsor, and the new sponsor, you agree with them 6 to 7 months before you play the first game under them, and you're telling me that they are not ready with the basics. I'm telling you about kit. There were not enough shots.
It's madness.
Goalkeepers didn't have training kit. You must go back to the pictures and see what the players, they were wearing the same kit as the infield players. On the bench, what do they wear?
Training, warm-up kits.
I think some members of the technical staff also at night they have to wash the shots.
Oh my word! Really?
But so what I'm saying to you, the only thing that surprised me yesterday was that they were brave to even put that plaster.
Rather that. It was raining.
Yeah,
what am I to do? It's rather that.
I saw it coming.
No, for sure. Okay, gents. Well, another big story that broke today was the fact that, Steve Komphela left his head coaching job to go join that alliance of the 3 coaches as a senior first-team coach, I think it is. So, I don't know how to feel about this one because obviously there were 3 coaches when Pizzo was there and he was like the alpha. Now Mangoba is that kind of person, except Steve has been managing as a head coach for longer now over the past couple of years. It's an interesting scenario, Rob. I mean, how do you read this one? Is this them just kind of pooling the best minds to help Sundowns win the title and then do much more?
It really was a very surprising decision. When I saw it on Twitter last night starting, I was like, what are you talking about? No one's going to do that. Then I started to think about if somebody offered. Then I thought of my own case, as in before I was a journalist. I was actually an editor,
right? And
I left being an editor, which is supposed to be a higher position, to go back to journalism because I was more on the ground,
right? And
also because technically I could earn a little more money. And sometimes life comes down to those kinds of decisions. And that's what I started to think is maybe Sundowns made an offer that Steve couldn't refuse,
right?
Financially. And sometimes, in another world, this isn't as uncommon. I have heard of head coaches becoming assistants at other clubs,
right,
because of working in teams and all of that. But there are bigger technical teams in a lot of European clubs. So sometimes your first team coach is actually the coach. Your manager is somebody who pops in, checks in at training, but isn't there all the time. So Sundowns might be creating a more modern environment like that. Perhaps Mankoba is also going to sit back a bit, let Steve do his thing, let Rulani do his thing. They also have a lot of players. Maybe they're each going to have a team. Maybe that's the case. You got 33. You got enough players to form 3 teams. Let's have 3 teams, and the team that plays best during the week, well, they play on the weekend.
So
That's just the thought.
yeah, I know. I mean, they have the capabilities, but they're gonna do a big purge, and then they won't have enough teams for all three coaches, and that's when it's gonna get interesting. But yeah, your thoughts on this appointment, Vic?
Very interesting, I have to say. I think most of us didn't see this one coming. Yeah. But look, I know that people have been having the debates around the co-coaching, the senior coach. Well, look, because he's coaching in the senior team, he's a senior coach,
Right.
Because if he was in the juniors, he would be a junior coach, But I think when you also hear that he will be reporting to the two co-coaches, so he's an assistant coach.
Okay, simple as that.
Yeah, he's an assistant coach to the senior, to the joint head coaches,
And the joint head coaches, meaning that they'd be relieved of being first team coach. They would focus on other things.
No. They are the coaches.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So
Steve,
he becomes a support system to those two head coaches. Understand? But also you can.
Who's laying out the cones in this situation?
Come again?
Who's laying out the cones in the situation? I'm a cone. Which of the coaches does that? Of those three?
This is why I was saying to you, I travel to Rustenburg so that as journalists we cannot rely on being sent audio. You understand?
Right.
If something is around our doorstep, I must not be told and say, "Hey, they are saying this." I must go and see it myself.
Right.
So me and you must go to Chlorcorp.
And see who's putting out the code.
And see the exact duties.
Right.
Understand? And
sure. Because I'm interested to see. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. we must go to the media open day, observe for ourselves. But also I think with how modern football works, if you look in the setup of Coach Pito, I think now with Alawale, he's got a local assistant. He's got TT sometimes who was sitting on the bench before Coach Kevin arrived, and now he'll also be having Coach Kevin there. So it's not to have someone experienced. You look at the situation of people didn't understand when Coach Ayanda, when he appointed Coach Alan Fries, because Ayanda during a presser he had told us that he's looking for a matured coach, somebody who's going to be a mentor, but will also remain his assistant. Right. And where I'm coming to is that you can also not divorce the relationship between Coach Rulani here, and Coach Steve, and maybe the influence that could have been there to bring him over, but also Coach Mangoba and Coach Steve are also people who know each other very well,
Sure.
and they also come from the same class, when it comes to their pro licenses and SAFA pro licenses, So these are coaches who know each other very well, and so that's why I'm saying let's see how they are going to work together, because I think the issue here with Coach Steve is more than just about coaching, but also it's about helping with the environment as well. So let's see, because you see, the tricky part is to criticize something before it even starts.
For sure.
For sure. So
I'm a big fan of Steve, and I got to say one thing is that it also tells you a lot about his ego, because a lot of coaches wouldn't do this because of ego alone. And I actually think it could be having somebody with his experience, also with the specific skills he brings to the party, because it's not, the fact is that he's a former defender whose teams, small teams, have often defended very well. He brings a different area, something different to that group. And I think, look, while it, yes, it for me it was shocking news. I wouldn't dismiss it as something that's not going to work, because I actually think it's a great brains trust. When I look, it's not a like for like replacement, but it's an experience for experience replacement in bringing in Steve with Pizzo leaving, and I also think that, I mean, it tells you a lot about the respect that the coaches have for each other. And that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you look at someone like, I think what is making South Africans to be a bit cagey about this one is that Coach Steve resigned from a head coaching position,
right,
to go to be an assistant to co-coaches. You know,
right.
because look, that's why at other clubs they call them first team coach. You know, there's the first assistant becomes a first team coach,
For sure.
right? And then the second one, he'll be called a second assistant.
Yes.
But the difference in this case is that he's going to an environment where it's co-coaches instead of
co-coaches.
one
Yeah,
head coach.
exactly.
You understand?
Yeah.
So that's where people are a bit cagey about it, and also how it's going to work as well. You know. So this is the situation.
Okay, well, let's see. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And yeah, here's a club that I'm gonna bring up because it's just like they're always in the news, Rob. When it comes to TTM, I mean, you know, there's word that they have a coach, that they don't have a coach. There's word that we've seen a coach, and also a curious question of who was coaching during the playoffs. But yeah, what's the situation with TTM? I mean, I really would love to have a time when we kind of speak of them glowingly and them, you know, running things and doing things properly. But I feel like every time they're in a conversation or we refer to them, it's just a case of, there's more trouble at the door.
Yeah, well, this is also just such a strange time with the bubble, lockdown, things like that. We have football in 4-5 days' time, and I have no idea who's going to run onto the field in some teams. And I've never been in that situation before. Not this close. Yeah. You know, and certainly, sometimes we don't know who's going to be on the bench. Lucky, the coach from the Glad Africa side, was on the bench in the playoffs. I assume that he will have to lead the team if no one is appointed by then. But I actually have no idea about that either. There's actually a press conferences starting tomorrow, and I believe TTM are the first press conference. And I have no idea who we're going to be talking to. You know, it's a bizarre situation.
Yeah.
Perhaps if we had had a regular off season of 2 months, we would have, you know, the guys up in Limpopo and in Gauteng would have been to a few preseason friendlies. They would have seen the teams. We don't even have that luxury this time around. And I mean, look, to only pick on them is also unfair, because there are other teams in a similar situation where you're not 100% sure of everything. But it's so bizarre. Like, I feel sorry for the opposition, because how do you plan for that? How do you're obviously just going to focus on yourself, right? Because you have no idea who's coming on the field. We've discovered a few names last week of players that potentially had signed or had potentially been retained. Yeah. But yeah, it's a bizarre situation. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's press conference as much as I'm looking forward to the game. I don't know if there's going to be any more clarity either by the press conference.
Well,
because
it's an interesting one, because Norman Mapeza was there, and literally within a couple of days he was like, "Nope, not for me. I'm going to leave, guys, because I can't do to this team what I'd like to do, and in the time that I have to do it." I mean, I've never. That is probably one of the shortest appointments we've seen, really. I mean, umuntu uyangena nje just to be like assessing the situation, and already he's back
it's not
home.
even an appointment. You know, according to the story on Times Live, because now he's back in Harare. So how he sees the situation is that he was here to assess, you know. But Rob will remember that last week we had an interview on the Software platform with the Silo Choko, the CEO, and I put it into him. I said, one of the reasons you can't tie down a coach is it due to financial issues, you know, because there have been rumors that financially they can't tie down their coaches. Remember, at first their first target, their priority number one was Owen Takama. They couldn't agree with him, you know, and now they can't agree with Norman Mapeza as well, you know.
Right.
And Mapeza, one of the things he's talking about is that the guys don't look to be ready, and he can't get that team ready. And one of the reasons, remember, they only retained 7 players from their squad that they brought from the Great Africa Championship. And they've got very few players, by the way, from Wits. Very few. I think when they were counting, it's less than 5 players. And some of the players they were mentioning are not with them. Even Richie, we saw him with Swallows, you know. Right. Also, Busham Kwanazi could end up at Supersport. You understand?
Right.
So, and yes, there are some players who are still on trial that they could tie down as well. But I know that they've been playing friendlies here in Pretoria, and they are organizing more friendlies even this week, you know. But the team just doesn't look ready on and off the field.
Sure.
No coach, less than 5 days to go to their first game of the season. The squad is not settled as well. It's a shame.
Who do we lay the blame at whose feet? Because people allowed them to participate in media like this.
There was a possibility of this team even qualifying for the CAF Komphela.
Sure.
You know, if Vets had finished in the top 3. So imagine the embarrassment, you know, because with the CAF Komphela also, they are very strict. They say if you, especially for the CAF competitions this coming season, if you don't conform to club licensing conditions that are required at that level, they will kick you out of the competition. So imagine if they were one of the 4 teams representing us, you know. So it's a serious issue. I'm telling you, serious issue. This one.
And I mean, Rob, if you're looking at the situation with TTM and you think about the cases with Harwich and him taking them to FIFA, and it's like, you know, as a coach, you probably aren't filled with much optimism. And so you're obviously going to want a lot of money just because you don't know this club is going to be around in a couple of months' time. And when it dawns on you that there's no resources, of course, it makes the decision easier to walk away. I mean, that being the situation, how are they going to find a quality enough coach to keep them in the big time?
Well, that's actually when you guys were talking about Bafana earlier, I was thinking about why we don't have a big name coach. And a big name coach looks at what's happened on this weekend, perhaps thinking, oh, I should coach South Africa. And then looks and goes and sees like everything. And he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't coach South Africa. And that I'm pretty sure is kind of how Mapeza's assessment went. The thing is that let me just say that I actually really rate Norman Mapeza as a coach. And I think he had that experience at Chipper even, where he was like, I could do so much better if the environment was a little better. And I think he came to TTM maybe thinking, okay, well, maybe it's going to be a better experience.
Yeah.
And it might not have been. Because the thing is that especially as a coach, you need that. You need some security. You know, there's very little security in a coach's job. We laugh at them when they get fired, but imagine getting fired 16 times in 16 years. That must really, really what's his name, your self-confidence.
Yeah.
And that happens to most coaches who have a 16-year career.
Right.
You know, the Pitso Mosamani's, who are, this is his third club. They're rare.
Yeah.
They're far more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exception, not the rule, especially
Yeah, no, look,
in.
I was really impressed. Even yesterday, I mean, I think from the 40th minute, they were one man down. They got a red card against Pyramids, and also I saw, or they missed a penalty as well on the stroke of half time. But you know, in the second half, Pyramids is a strong team. You know, in the second half, they also hit the woodwork. They had some chances. You know, so it was because I thought they came close to. I thought maybe they were going to lose after losing a player in the first half, you know. So I felt it was a good preparation for Wydad Casablanca, who missed out on winning the Portola Pro League yesterday. Raja Casablanca winning right at the end there. So this coming week is going to be very interesting. So it talks to what Rob is talking about.
Yeah, and Pitso is a great example of what Al Ahly are getting. They're getting his heart.
Yeah.
You know, Pitso loved Supersport. Pitso loved Sundowns. And Pitso's going to love Al Ahly because that's the type of coach he is. But if you fire a guy after 6 months, every 6 months, that coach is going for a paycheck to the next job. He's not going to throw his heart in because, well, he doesn't know why give my heart if you're going to break it.
Yeah,
and a lot of coaches are like that.
Yeah, and you remember how was Sundowns with coaches before Pitso, eh? You remember?
Willy-nilly. That is true.
So back to TTM. I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. I want this weekend for a full squad of signed players who are all ready to be playing at this level to be taking to the field. But they're going to surprise me if they do.
That is scary. And this is like on the return of the premium product as far as South African football is concerned. And to have a team that just seem not in it ready.
Ace Manisa. Or Ace Manisa is going to be the star and just do everything himself.
Oh, well, he can try. It's not going to get him far. As talented as he is.
Manisa, Malongwane, and these are two players who didn't play the whole of last season, eh?
Oh, I mean, on that note, Velile, Wade Juster joins, and I think he hardly played in the bubble and hardly finished a game, never finished a game any time he played for the team before joining Orlando Pirates. I mean, you know, so you look at that and some strange decisions as far as recruitment is concerned. That one stood out for me.
Who are you talking about?
Wade Juster. Wade Juster joining Orlando Pirates. I mean, for me, it was quite an interesting appointment, considering that he hasn't played that much. If I have to show it to you, I mean, the guy played 7 matches where he started in the starting 11, and then he was substituted 5 of those, and then he was in the squad 24 times. So he wasn't even active.
Sometimes it could happen that the way they profile the player, it's what they want, you know. Right. But for me, there's been Nyauza in that position, you know, especially with, how can I put it? Especially now with Tyson arriving. So Nyauza, I gather that he will move back to his original position, which was the right back, you know. There was Mabaso who also played in that position as well. There's Dube in that position as well, you know. There's also been the young man, Monyane, playing in that position. So, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of it's a strange one, Rob. I mean, from Highlands to Pirates, having not played that much at Highlands, you know.
Football is a funny game, and I kind of think of it as dating. Sometimes you spend a long time with a girl and it doesn't work out. And then sometimes you spend a very short time with a girl and it does. And I think sometimes clubs are like that as well. Sometimes you're going to work at a club and sometimes you're not. And some of my favorite footballers are inactive because they moved to the wrong club.
Right.
And they didn't fit into a style. Maybe Pirates saw something with Wade that's going to suit the coach's style. Maybe it's, you know, sometimes scouting does that.
Yeah.
You see something that club is not seeing. And that move makes a difference. You know, some players just work at some places, some don't. It is an interesting one. But it is a position that they have, like we said, they've struggled with to fill the past few seasons. Maybe they see an answer there. At Highlands, he did have people to compete with who were coach favorites, like Ryan Ray played a lot and was really good.
Yeah.
And was also used in different ways, because like long throws, he was a weapon that was different to possibly to what your star offers.
Well, let's see. I mean, like you say, it could be all down to the scouting. They've isolated the guy that they want, and he could come in and make a difference. Time will tell. We'll discuss the purge of all these players and much more on another edition of the show, because obviously all the transfer movement is still happening within the league, and there's so much.
I see Nemo is asking about Nange. What's the story with Nange? I just have a few words around Nange. Nange was the first player Chiefs got in this window. Thank you.
Mic drop moment there from Velile. There we have it, gents. Thank you so much once again for our weekly discussion, and of course, just kind of bringing to the surface some of the insights you have as to what's really happening as far as the nitty-gritty of local football is concerned. I know you'd like to say more, but we can't, because we value our sanity. And of course, Velile, you've already been exposed to what that means on Twitter. But yeah, thank you, gents, for all your thoughts and your impressions this evening.
Have a good week.
Thank you. And to you who's been watching on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in to the Front Runner Football Podcast. You can always engage with the sound bites as they drop throughout the week. If we said something that makes sense and you'd like your friends or those who you know are fellow football lovers to kind of engage with that content, please send them our way at Front Sports is the Twitter handle. For myself, Kamza, Mbatha, and the team behind the scenes. Until we meet again in a week's time, sharp.